Yes, you with the heart that's been negotiating with silence. Let's be honest tonight. There are two women inside you. One of them smiles in every photo. She knows how to keep things smooth. She speaks when spoken to. She's mastered the art of softness, of staying small to make others feel safe. You've seen her. She keeps the peace. She wears your mother's worry and your teacher's praise like a second skin. But the other, she doesn't negotiate. She doesn't flinch when someone calls her too much. She remembers things you were told to forget. She is the part of you that never accepted the script. The one who didn't argue, but quietly walked out of the garden. Barefoot, unapologetic, whole. She doesn't cry to be rescued. She knows the truth. Obedience is not the price of love. This isn't just personal. It's mythic. It's archetypal. Lilith wasn't born in your lifetime, but she lives in your spine. She is the first exiled anima, the one who said no before the world taught her to whisper it. In story, she was cast out. In psyche, she was buried. But in you, she waits. This isn't about gender. It's about energy, about truth, about polarity. Lilith as the dark feminine, the force that says, don't ask for permission. Don't apologize for existing. She's not chaos. She's choice. Not soft or hard, just true. She is the refusal to be reduced, the decision to be whole. Lilith isn't the fire. She's the one who steps into it. Not to burn, but to become. And tonight, we say her name. Not to remember her, but to awaken her. Because maybe the question isn't, who was Lilith? Maybe the real question is, when will you let her rise in you? Have you ever felt torn between staying silent or standing true? Comment below. Lilith is rising in me. Let's begin together. What does it mean to say no? Not loudly, not for drama, not to provoke, but deeply, clearly, calmly. No! The kind that starts in your spine and ends in your soul. Not this, not like that, not anymore. It sounds simple, but for a woman, especially a woman like Lilith, no is revolutionary because we were taught to say yes, even when we meant, please stop. Lilith's no wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was firm. It was knowing. It was enough. Lilith didn't rebel for rebellion's sake. She didn't fight to rule. She wanted to stand beside, equal. She didn't want dominance. She wanted dignity. But the world, it wasn't ready for a woman who wouldn't shrink herself into safety, so they gave her a name. Dangerous, unholy, defiant. And Lilith? She didn't flinch, she walked. Jung might say she became shadow. Not because she was wrong, but because they turned off the light where she stood. She wasn't erased. She was buried. Under doctrine, under fear, under centuries of teaching women to trade power for permission. But buried things don't die. They wait. And Lilith, she waits in you. Have you felt it? That moment in the mirror when you realize the life you're living isn't yours. That pause when someone says, you've changed. And something in you answers, thank God. That quiet voice rising in you. That's Lilith. That's your sacred no trying to breathe. Here's what they won't tell you. Saying no will cost you. People will walk. Some will call you distant. Some will say, you used to be nicer. What they mean is, you used to be easier to control. Lilith didn't leave the garden out of hate. She left because she knew a paradise where you're not free is just a prettier kind of prison. The myths rewrote her. They made her a warning. They turned her into fear, not because she failed, but because she didn't stay. Look closer, and you'll see the truth. Every woman who said enough was called dangerous. not because she was wrong, but because she was free. Lilith is the voice inside you that doesn't ask, "Am I too much?" She asks, "Or were they simply not enough to hold the truth of me?" That voice that tells you to stop apologizing for being awake, that's her. The one who walks away from rooms that feel wrong, even if she's the only one who notices, her again. Modern Stoicism teaches, we cannot control others, but we can control our own alignment. Lilith knew this long before it had a name. She didn't beg to be understood. She didn't stay to be liked. She simply said, "This isn't aligned." And she left, not from spite, but from self-respect. Not from ego, but from inner clarity. Sometimes healing begins with walking away. Sometimes choosing yourself looks like loss. But in that space, where approval falls away and truth begins, that's where Lilith lives. She didn't burn the garden. She just refused to live where she couldn't be whole. Esoteric minimalism now speaks. No fire explains. It just warms. No river defends. It just flows. Lilith didn't fight. She walked. So ask yourself, what have you been tolerating just to be accepted? Where have you smiled through discomfort to keep others comfortable? Where does your truth beg to be spoken, but you stay silent because silence feels safer than freedom? If no one told you before, let me tell you now. You don't need to explain your no. You don't need permission to be whole. You don't need a map when your compass has been inside your chest all along. What's one place in your life where your no deserves to be heard? Comment below with, and the truth you're reclaiming. This is your beginning. Let's begin again with the word that started it all. No. Lilith didn't say it to provoke. She said it to stay whole. She didn't want war. She wanted remembrance. Because what if the real rebellion is simply remembering who you were before the world taught you to forget? You've met this part of yourself before. The part that knows. The part that doesn't explain. The part that feels everything before words arrive. She doesn't ask to be liked. She asks to be honest. That woman, that's your Lilith. That's the dark feminine. Not dark because she's harmful, dark because she's hidden, shadowed by shame, buried under silence, twisted into something she never was. But she's still here, inside you. Not extinct, just waiting. Let's clear something up. The dark feminine is not rage. She's not destruction. She's not a tantrum. She is boundary. She is depth. She is discernment. She is the part of you that sees betrayal and calmly says, never again. Jung called her the anima in revolt. But her revolt isn't noisy. It's sacred. It's a woman closing the door and never returning. It's the message left unsent. The apology that doesn't come. The silence that speaks louder than any scream. That's her. So why do we call her dark? Because we were taught that only the soft, the small, the sweet deserve light. But the dark, that's where birth happens. Where seeds crack open, where truth begins. Lilith didn't reject the light. She simply refused to abandon her shadow. She didn't wear softness like a disguise. She wore silence like armor. She didn't wait for saving. She built herself a sanctuary from everything she was told to deny. Maybe you're not running from Eden. Maybe you're just walking away from anything that tells you you have to earn your worth. A job, a relationship, a narrative, a belief. Maybe you're not trying to hurt anyone. You're just finally choosing not to hurt yourself. That is the return of the dark feminine. Not loud, not angry, clear. Modern Stoicism teaches us, You can't control others, but you can control your own alignment. Lilith didn't wait for validation. She didn't beg for understanding. She trusted her gut. She trusted her silence. She trusted her truth. Because obedience without alignment is just betrayal in disguise. And Lilith? She didn't betray herself. Let's talk polarity. Lilith wasn't against men. She wasn't against partnership. She was against submission without respect. She didn't want to rule. She wanted to be seen, to be met fully. Adam was taught to lead. Lilith wanted to mirror. But when mirror met mask, she walked away. Because the dark feminine doesn't beg. She chooses. She doesn't seek revenge. She seeks resonance. This isn't an ancient myth. This is you. Every time you say no and stay calm. Every time you leave the room without explanation. Every time you protect your peace instead of proving your worth. That's Lilith. In action. In presence. In breath. She is not something you become. She is what's left when you stop pretending. She is what remains after you take off the mask. So ask yourself, where have you made yourself small just to feel safe? Where are you still waiting for someone else to give you back your voice? Because Lilith doesn't give it back. She reminds you you never lost it. Comment, I carry her, if you've ever walked away from something that wasn't right, even if no one understood why. To silence a woman like Lilith, you don't need chains. You need something quieter. You need shame. You need silence. You need separation. Let's talk about the tools they used to bury her, because they are still in use. And maybe you felt them too. First, shame. They didn't just write her out. They rewrote her as warning. She wasn't portrayed as powerful, but problematic. Not wise, but wicked. Not sovereign, but sinister. Because when a woman says no and doesn't flinch, they call her dangerous. They turned her into a cautionary tale, a shadow, a threat. But shame doesn't belong to the one who leaves. It belongs to the one who tries to keep her caged. Shame was never hers. It was assigned. And maybe you've worn it too. That heavy silence that says, don't speak too boldly. Don't want too much. Don't walk too far. But Lilith, she kept walking. Not out of spite, out of truth. Second, silence erase her. Mute her. Pretend she was never part of the beginning. And when whispers of her story return, call it myth, call it danger, call it anything but valid. Have you been there? That moment when your truth rises, but you swallow it. Because you've been trained to keep the peace that cost your presence. That silence. Weaponized, Lilith never learned how to stay small. She was born complete. And when the world asked her to shrink, she left. Not to escape, but to protect her integrity. Sometimes silence isn't survival. It's slow erasure. Third, separation. Perhaps the subtlest weapon of all. They didn't just exile her. They isolated her. From womanhood, from holiness, from sisterhood. She became the other, a warning. The one you must never become. Because if she stood alone, maybe others wouldn't follow. But myth doesn't die. It waits. And Lilith. She's still breathing in every woman who whispers, there must be more than this. Lilith wasn't the only one. Let's remember her sister shadow, Medusa. Not the monster, not the curse, the woman. Before the serpents, before the story was stolen, Medusa was violated. And then blamed. Transformed not by choice, but by power. And still, her gaze became strength. They made her terrifying because she survived. Not because she harmed, but because she refused to be silent. Lilith walked away. Medusa stared back. 2 archetypes, 2 mirrors, 2 warnings. Or maybe 2 maps. Jung would say These are the feminine aspects our culture buried. Untamed truth, unapologetic rage, unshakable clarity. Lilith whispered, "I won't kneel." Medusa replied, "Then look me in the eyes and see what you've done." Not to punish, to reveal. This isn't mythology, it's memory, and you weren't meant to forget. We inherited their silence. We also inherited their power. Modern Stoicism teaches, do not control the world, control your response. Lilith didn't change Adam. She chose herself. Medusa didn't seek revenge. She became protection. Both are sovereignty, in different forms. And now, so are you. Shame didn't make them small. It made them sacred. Silence didn't erase them. It made their return louder. Separation didn't destroy them. It gave them room to become whole again. So let me ask you, where has shame been mistaken for humility? Where has silence felt safer than truth? Where have you separated from yourself just to feel accepted? That's where she waits. That's where you rise. Drop a heart eyes in the comments if you've ever felt punished for being clear. And tell me, what silence are you ready to break? This is where the myth ends and the living begins. You've spoken Lilith's name. You've heard her breath in your chest. You felt her in every moment you almost chose yourself, but didn't. Now the question becomes, how do you live like her? Not in poetry, not in legend, but in the everyday, in texts, in meetings, in how you answer when someone says, "Can you help?" Again, in the way you walk into a room without asking for permission to exist. Living like Lilith isn't loud, it's clear. It's not about rebellion. It's about no longer betraying yourself to belong. Lilith didn't walk away to make a statement. She walked because staying was no longer aligned. That's it. No drama, no spectacle, just self-honoring. So ask yourself now, where in your life are you staying just to be acceptable? What roles are you still playing out of fear of being alone? What part of you is still waiting for someone else to give you back your voice? Integration doesn't always look like power. It often looks like peace. Choosing not to explain, not to defend, not to perform. It's the no that lands gently, but doesn't move. It's the silence that feels like a full sentence. Jung said, enlightenment is not imagining figures of light, but making the darkness conscious. That's Lilith. Not a costume, a clearing. She is what remains after the pretending stops, after the mask breaks, after the people-pleasing exhausts itself. She is the woman you were before the world told you who to be. So let's make this real. Here's what becoming her might look like. Saying no without a 3-paragraph explanation. Letting the silence be awkward instead of apologizing for it. Walking away from one-sided love without a dramatic exit. Being misunderstood and letting them. This isn't rudeness, it's clarity. And clarity is your new compass. Modern Stoicism says, you don't need the world to behave. You need your inner world to be aligned. Lilith didn't wait to be chosen. She chose herself. And that choice, it cost her everything except her soul. And maybe you've felt it too, that choosing yourself sometimes feels like loss. But in that loss, there's something else. Room, space, truth. Lilith is not something you become. She is what rises when you stop shrinking. She is the breath you take after you say no and nothing bad happens. She is the moment you realize you are allowed to disappoint people and still be good. Let me be clear. You are not here to be easy, or pleasing, or convenient. You are here to be whole, not to endure and call it love, not to shrink and call it peace, but to live fully, unapologetically. And if it feels lonely at first, you're not broken. You're just early, Lilith was the first. You may be the first in your family, in your circle, in your lineage, but you won't be the last. Because when you rise, you become a signal, a spark, a map. You want a ritual? Here it is. Speak kindly to yourself when others misunderstand you. Rest without guilt. Let your truth be enough for you. Leave quietly. Don't return to what made you abandon yourself. That's Lilith. That's sovereignty. That's becoming her. Whisper tone, final breath. Visual, a woman standing in still moonlight. The wind moves softly. Her presence says everything. She didn't argue. She didn't explain. She just walked. And now you carry her. Not by remembering her myth, but by living your own. Unfolding. Unedited. Unashamed. Comment, I choose me, if this part found you where you needed it. And don't forget, subscribe if you're ready for the next archetype. Because up next, your anger is sacred. Why shadow feminine is not weak but wise.